Welcome to the Open Space Authority. My name is Terry, and I'm actually the Educational Programs Coordinator for the Open Space Authority, and I've been here for 13 years now. And I really enjoy creating all the programs and helping to do partner programs with other people. And some years ago, a friend of mine actually introduced me to Mark Hehir. And I have been so excited to get to meet him and see the photographs that he does and some of the videos that he has and things like that. And so I managed to talk him into doing this presentation today, and he's been so gracious about it. So this presentation is Finding Your ADA Accessible Trails, and this is with our special guest, Mark Hehir. So Mark has a form of muscular dystrophy, and he's been on a ventilator for over 24 years, and it makes it hard for him to talk. So that's why we're going to be using the chat feature so that he can respond to you live as you have questions. And then we'll be able to answer your questions that way, but it'll actually be my physical voice for now, for this time. So let's see. Here we go. So hello, my name is Mark Hehir. Welcome to my favorite accessible parks and trails. This is a picture of Vasona Park. Wow, that's beautiful. Oops. 24 years ago, I began using a wheelchair and breathing on a ventilator due to having a form of muscular dystrophy. I soon realized that being outdoors would be the best medicine for my overall health and well-being. Here's a picture of Mark in Half Moon Bay back in 1997. And what better place is there to benefit from the outdoors than the San Francisco Bay Area? Here's a picture view from Crissy Field and the Palace of Fine Arts. Hey, Mark, did you actually take these photos? I know I probably asked you that before. He's answering. He says, yes. This is one of the things I love about him, is that he takes these amazing photographs. Adventures from a Wheelchair blog. In 2010, I began posting blog reviews and videos of the parks and trails that I had visited. So down at the bottom of the screen here, you can see the link, or you can see the address for Mark's blog. And so you can actually go there. I was stalking it this morning. Yay! And you can actually go there and enjoy all of the different videos from places that he's been and see his write-ups and his recommendations there as well. Today, I would like to share with you a few of my favorite parks and trails. Before we begin, let's first talk about the following. What are the guidelines for an accessible trail? What should each accessible park and trail have? And what are the benefits of the outdoors? So I'm just checking really quick to see if anybody raised their hand. No, okay. There are accessible trail guidelines. So the width of an accessible trail should be a minimum of 36 inches and must be maintained for the entire distance of the trail. Trails can be either paved or dirt as long as they are firm and stable and there are no obstacles that are higher than 2 inches. They also need to have a running slope of no higher than 5%. This is actually a picture of the Yagas Loop Trail over at Rancho Cañada del Oro. And these guidelines actually come to us from the Architectural Barriers Act standards, which were created in 2015. So what each accessible park trail should have is an accessible parking, including van accessible parking, which has slightly wider hash mark area there. And they also need to have accessible restrooms. So I asked Mark what happens, because a lot of folks who don't have chairs don't understand about the reason for the hash marks next to the parking space. And it turns out that Mark was saying that what can happen is a lot of these vans, they have ramps in order to get in there. And if somebody parks too close to you, you may not even be able to get back in your car. So I think that's really important to add to the education. And we do that ourselves. We add that to our education now when we greet people in the park, And if anybody does park illegally, we let them know right away, hey, you know, this is why this is important, and this is here for people with disabilities, and we need to make space for that and make sure that people understand. The benefits of being outdoors. There have been several scientific studies have proven that the health benefits of having parks, trails, and open space preserves include these. They encourage people to exercise. They improve your physical and mental health. They build healthy communities and stronger social interaction. And they help to protect and conserve natural areas. So Mark has made a list of us of his favorite parks and trails. So he has his favorite paved trail number 1 and 2. And oops, hold on a second. So Annalise is messaging me that the chat should be live right now, but I still don't see it. So we will continue in this vein. So paved trails number 1 and 2. There's a dirt trail, a redwood trail, ooh, my favorite, bird watching trail, and loop trails 1 and 2, the coastal trail, and a favorite park 1 and 2. So these are some of his favorite locations that we're about to see. Most parks will have a drinking fountain, but not all trails will. It's recommended that you always bring your own water supply. This is particularly important at open space preserves because we're very much undeveloped and we don't have any drinking fountains at all or running water. Trails are listed as easy to moderate. Are paved trails where there's an 8% grade or less at some parts of the trail. Overall, most of the trail will be less than a 5% grade. Checking for hands, okay. Paved trail number 1. This is his first of his favorite trails. So the Coyote Creek Parkway goes from Morgan Hill to San Jose. So this is a paved trail. It's easy to moderate. It's 15.5 miles. I almost fell over when he told me that. But Mark is a very adventurous hiker. And so he's been out here and he loves this trail. So it does have accessible parking and it does have an accessible restroom. Highlights of the Coyote Creek Parkway is that the trail is never far from Coyote Creek. And in some cases, it's just a few feet away. You'll enjoy different landscape settings like meadows and tree groves. Among the wildlife you might see are wild turkeys, deer, rabbits, red-tailed hawks, ground squirrels, and even a coyote. Favorite park paved trail number 2, the Bayview Trail, Coyote Hills Regional Park in Fremont. So this is a paved trail. It's considered easy to moderate. It's 3.5 miles. It has accessible parking and it has an accessible restroom. Highlights of the Bayview Trail is that the Bayview Trail weaves around the contours of rolling hills. It has views of San Francisco Bay and the marshland, and there's also a protected marsh area. It has an accessible trail from which you can see shorebirds that occupy several ponds, and I bet you some of his most amazing photographs have probably come from here. There's also a dirt trail at Wheeler Ranch Road, at the Wheeler Ranch Road Trail at San Pedro Park in Pacifica. So this is a dirt and gravel trail. It's easy and it's 1 mile. It has accessible parking and an accessible restroom. Highlights of the Wheeler Ranch Road Trail is that a trail runs through a beautiful valley with wildflowers covering each side. It's very quiet and a peaceful setting. There are deer, rabbits, and other animals that can be spotted in a meadow. Ooh, that sounds so pretty. For redwood trails, if you love redwood trees, you can go to Henry Cowell Redwood State Park in Felton. So this is a dirt trail. The trail rating that he's giving this is easy. It's 0.8 miles. It has accessible parking and an accessible restroom. And I asked Mark, do you ever get cold here? And it turns out that he said yes. So because of the shade and because of the moist environment, you just might want to take that into account and make sure that you have extra layers for your adventure. Highlights of the Redwood Trail is that it's always been an awe-inspiring experience hiking among the majestic redwoods. After finishing each hike, I like to backtrack the way I had come so that I can see the redwoods from a different view. I like how Mark also does these artistic renditions of his photographs. If you're into bird watching, here's his favorite bird watching trail. So the Baylands Nature Preserve in Mountain View. It's dirt and gravel, it's easy, it's 15 miles long, so you have up to 15 miles that you can check this out. It has accessible parking and an accessible restroom. And here are some of his amazing photographs. So the Baylands Nature Preserve highlights are that you'll be able to see so many species of birds that it makes this a perfect place for bird watching. And if you look at these photographs, Mark has taken these photographs. He has an amazing sense of patience and the ability to sit there and wait until he gets a perfect shot. I'm so amazed by this. I do not have the attention span. I think it's wonderful that he does this. So if you want to take good pictures and check out the birds, you should go to the Baylands Nature Preserve. For loop trails, here's loop trail number 1, the Coyote Lake Harvey Bear Ranch Park in Martin Murphy. This is the Martin Murphy Trail in San Martin. So it's paved, easy. It's 2.4 miles and it has accessible parking and an accessible restroom. Highlights of the Martin Murphy Trail is that a scenic view of the Diablo Range's rolling hills. It has a scenic view of the Diablo Range's rolling hills that the trail nestles up to. Farmers will let their cattle graze in the meadow that the trail encompasses. And there are 4 wheelchair accessible shade structures located along the trail. That's good because I think it can get pretty warm out there. Loop trail number 2 is the Yagas Creek Loop Trail over at Rancho Cañada del Oro Open Space Preserve in Morgan Hill. So this trail type is easy, it's paved, it's easy, it's a little under a half a mile, it has accessible parking and an accessible restroom. So I was just out there yesterday doing a program, and I wanted to let you know that for folks that like to bring kids with them, this is exactly 36 inches. So it's perfect for 1 wheelchair at a time. However, if you get kids out there that like to rollerblade, just warn them about striding out too far because they're not used to having a trail that's this narrow. So we could look into some other options in the future for that, but it's always fun to see the whole family come out and enjoy this. Highlights of this trail is the Yagas Creek Loop Trail encircles a beautiful meadow. There's an abundance of wildlife such as foxes, deer, wild turkeys, acorn woodpeckers, and other species of birds. There are 2 accessible picnic tables, making for a perfect setting for having a meal and enjoying the peaceful surroundings. And in the spring, this is covered in wildflowers. So you'll be able to see, you can see them a little bit in the picture here too, but it was designed by my supervisor at the time. His name was Pat Congdon, and he had an assignment where he had to go and imagine being in a wheelchair, and he was frustrated at that time. This was like 25, 30 years ago. He was frustrated by his experience. So since he was the general manager of the Open Space Authority, he decided to create this trail. So it was created with accessibility in mind, and it meanders, and it has deliberate little humps that they can grow flowers on, so that when you're out there, you're not turning around and looking at a bunch of cars. You actually feel like you're out in a meadow someplace. So that was the thought behind the creation of it too, to make someplace beautiful for people to go. For coastal trails, the Old Maury Trail to the Coastal Trail, Maury Point in Pacifica. This is a dirt trail. It's easy. It's 0.45 miles. It has accessible parking and an accessible restroom. Highlights of the Old Maury Trail is that the Old Maury Trail links with a coastal trail, which is 0.8 miles. It's a 0.8 mile hike to the Pacifica Wharf. It has a spectacular view of the Pacific Ocean, and it's a great spot for whale watching. Favorite park number one. His number one favorite park is Vasona. So he loves Vasona Park in Los Gatos. So the trail type for this is that it's paved, it's easy, it's 2 miles, and it has accessible parking and an accessible restroom. Highlights of Vasona Park is that it has 2 miles of trails that offer a scenic view of the Vasona Reservoir. So the Los Gatos Creek Trail flows into this lake. There has several picnic areas, and for children, there's a playground and the Billy Jones Wildcat Railroad. The park is connected to 9.7 miles of the Los Gatos Creek Trail. And in the wintertime, they also have that fantasy of lights that you can see. Favorite park number 2 is Crissy Fields in San Francisco. It has a dirt trail, it's easy, it's 1.3 miles, it has accessible parking and an accessible restroom. And yes, Mark did take these pictures too. So beautiful. Highlights of Crissy Fields is that it has a stunning view of the Golden Gate Bridge. It has a close view of Alcatraz Island and Crissy Field Marsh with shorebirds. You can watch various types of boats and ships sail by under the bridge and around the bay. So some final thoughts here are that we're fortunate to live in the Bay Area, which has many accessible parks and trails, but there is still a lot of work to do to make sure that they are barrier-free. So if you look at these 2 pictures, you can see on the left that there's a barrier here, so there's no access for somebody in a chair to get down to the beach. But if you look at the picture on the right, it's barrier-free, which provides equal access. Just as it is our responsibility to take care of and protect our natural resources, parks, and open space preserves, it is also our responsibility to provide inclusion and equity to them. This is extremely important to me also. So please do let us know if you ever see anything that you feel that we need to work on. Thank you. This is Mark at the Coyote Creek Parkway in 2019. Special thanks to Special thanks to Terry Rogway for hosting this presentation for me. So I'll put it back here. So does anybody have any questions for Mark? If you do, if you open up your participants section, you should be able to click on raise your hand. Oops. Okay, so Bonnie, if you want to go ahead and unmute, please feel free to talk, and then I will read Mark's response that comes back through my messenger.
Sure, thanks. Hi, Mark. Thanks for this wonderful presentation. Hope you're doing well. This is Bonnie Lukowitz. And I just was wondering, when you say the mileage, when it's not a loop trail, are you saying it's, say, 15 miles out and back, round trip, or is it 15 miles one way?
He's responding. I can see the dots dancing. He says that's one way. So 15 miles one way. Whoa. That's a long experience there.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, Susan McKay, if you could please unmute yourself and feel free to ask your question.
Hi, Mark. Thanks so much for doing this. I'm Susan McKay. I have 2 questions. One actually is for Terry, which is, would you please put the link to Mark's blog back up so I can copy it? And the second is, Mark, oftentimes we run into issues with parking because a lot of these sites are very popular. So is there a recommended time to get there, or alternative parking locations? Just kind of understanding that. And we usually meet friends and we're doing the social distancing. So, you know, parking, I see at a lot of these places is an issue.
He says that usually the early morning is best for crowded trails and parks. So he recommends coming early.
Thank you.
The other thing that you can do for open space preserves is if you know that you're coming out that day, if it's not like a spontaneous thing, you can always call us and let us know, or email us and let us know, and we can set aside extra parking if we need to. Oops.
Thank you. That's awesome. I did not know that.
Yeah, we love to do stuff to like help people out, and yeah, it's really important to us.
Is there a particular email just or to the Open Space Preserve?
So you can send it to me if you want at T as in Terry, ROG as in George, OWAY at, here's the long part, Open Space Authority .org. And then what I will do, and there's also info at openspaceauthority.org, but if you want to get straight to me, I can send that out to the field staff.
Great, thank you.
And it sends this mass message, so it's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
So I believe this is it Seal or Seal? Please feel free to unmute yourself.
It's Seal.
Oh, cool. Hello,
Short,
Seal. Thank you for joining us.
Sure, short for Cecilia. Mark, thanks so much. And Terry, thanks for hosting for Mark. I appreciate the details on it. I had a couple of questions. One was, I tried to take notes as it went by, but I was wondering if we were going to get a copy of this or a link somehow so we could get the details. That was one question. And then the second one, I use a walker, so this was really helpful on the dirt or paved, and I wondered if he might comment on the various dirt trails as a whole, whether a rolling walker is viable for someone who can walk with a walker. And then my last question is, I'm president of a not-for-profit that works with the National Wildlife Refuge Complex as a friends group, and I wondered if there's anything he could recommend that Don Edwards, which is the one closest in the area he's been talking about, or San Pablo Bay, that we could do that would help him in some way.
Okay, so he's typing right now.
I can imagine.
What I can do is if everybody signed up through the, or you can email me also, but if everybody has signed up through the Eventbrite, then I can do a response where I can email everybody all of this information. So with Mark's permission, I can send the PowerPoint, like an attachment PowerPoint, and I can give you all of like the blog stuff and things like that. So he says that Don Edwards is a great spot for bird watching, and he's writing. It was fun watching the bouncing dots on my phone. He says that for walkers, you want to make sure that it's level because going down a slope will have loose dirt. So it does have some loose dirt there. And he says, and I have used a walker. So he has used a walker there. So I believe the other question, Mark, was about Don Edwards. He says, yes. Oh, what was the question for that again? Or did he answer it?
He said he'd been there, and I appreciated that. I was wondering if there was anything that we could do better. I do know, for example, that with the shelter in place and the Don Edwards Environmental Education Center on the south side being closed, that you can't, I don't think, get past the lock gate. I would have to collapse my walker to move it onto the paved area. The upland trail is still open, but I know it's not being maintained as much. It would be difficult, I think, for a wheelchair. But I wondered if there were any other things that he thought of that he experienced that we could do. And anyway, that's something specific to me, and I could approach you through, him through you to get more detail later.
Okay, he's responding. So is the park technically closed over there, or it's open for walkers, but not like people that are?
It's open for people visiting. It's open for people visiting. It's just that the EEC isn't open, so the nice restrooms are not open.
Aww.
There is a porta potty, and I believe it's a disabled access porta potty. It used to be. I assume it still is, but that's a ways in. But I'm not sure you could get in on the south part of the refuge.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
just thinking, something to be aware of, but you can walk into it, and there's a boardwalk, and there's an accessible boardwalk, and to a point, and there's a ramp and all of that.
So he's recommending that Baylands is a good place for bird watching for walkers. It's a very flat trail. So he's recommending that you could try that.
Definitely, very true.
Cool. Okay. So how about Sue D? Sue, would you please unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question?
Hi, Terry. Actually, I think Seal maybe addressed it. I was trying to take notes, but some of these park names and trail names were kind of long, and I didn't have time to finish writing it before you moved to the next slide. So yeah, if you could send something out to everyone, that would be great, because I didn't quite catch everything for my notes.
Okay. Is everybody signed up through Eventbrite? Did everybody do that?
I did.
Okay. So if not, then
I was not able to sign up through Eventbrite because the sales had ended because it was already afternoon.
okay. So it looks like I can actually see on the screen here, I can see your email. So I'm writing it down right now.
Thank you.
I'll add you and make sure that I send it to you too.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Excellent. So it looks like Bonnie has her hand up. Bonnie, would you like to ask your question?
Sure, and some of it is a response to questions that people have already asked. I actually also maintain a website of accessible trails in Northern California called Access Northern California. And I've been out to Don Edwards, and if there are any park managers out there, one of the first things that you can do around providing good access is making sure you have that information up on your website. So Terry, when you mentioned about being able to call and get a reserved spot or whatever, is that mentioned anywhere on the website? How does someone know that information? So that's really a first step. And also, I mean, I don't know that there's any people here with visual impairments, but there's all kinds of types of disabilities. And also you want to make sure that your websites are accessible to people that maybe use screen readers. I mean, there's regulations around it. But that's another form of access. Most people think of the physical access, but there's also the programmatic access. So just keep that in mind as park managers. And I think all my other questions were answered.
Okay, cool. So let's see. So I just want to make sure. So Susan, did you have any more questions? I see your hand is still raised. I didn't know if you had a new one.
No, I didn't. I didn't realize I didn't shut it. I'll do that. Thanks. Other than the link to Mark's blog.
Okay, okay. So what I will do is, since I still can't can't open the chat. So what I will do is I will send out the link to Mark's blog in an email that'll come to you from Eventbrite. So it'll come through Eventbrite. It'll have the link to his blog. And I also wrote down that Access Northern California, because that's a great idea too. And then I will see about squishing this PowerPoint, and with Mark's permission, I will send that to you too, so that you can see all the locations and everything. Mark, would that be okay with you? He says yes. Okay, so Amy Terrell, do you have a question? Suspense. No, no, okay.
Sorry, I found out how to
Uh-oh.
unmute.
I am
Um,
totally feeling that today, so don't you worry.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's listed on the information that you're going to send out, but the percent of change in elevation is very useful information because my mom's in a wheelchair, and also like for the blind center, because I take her to the blind center too. And those people always want to know what is the percent of change, what's the kind of grade, so that they can know, oh, yeah, that's not my deal.
Mark is saying that on his blog, he actually has a grade percent guide.
Oh, good. Yes, that's very, very useful.
So I've actually done a program for the Center for the Blind before. And
Oh, nice.
I came out there and the first thing that struck me was I was like, wow, look at all these great parking spots.
But your car will get dinged in each one of those parking spots.
Yeah, so we actually took folks over to the Guadalupe River Park and Gardens, to the Rose Garden, like the Heritage Rose Garden, and I was able to do that. And I remember as folks were coming off the bus, I had this moment of panic where I was like, I'm bringing people who are sight impaired into a place with thorns and bees. But it actually went great, and everybody had a good time. And
they're still doing the Zoom calls right now on Wednesdays.
Oh,
so I bet people
River Park?
would love to hear from you. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, cool. Right on. Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to.
Do you have Sergio's contact info?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Well, when you send me the email, I will give you Sergio's info.
Okay, that's a good deal.
Yes, I love it. Thank you.
Okay, cool. So Mark's writing something right now. He says, thank you everyone for attending my presentation. So thank you everybody. We really appreciate you coming, and we'll see about doing some more of these in the future. And thank you so much, and look forward please to the email. And if you didn't get that email or the Eventbrite, if you didn't sign up that way, please feel free to email me at trogaway, TROGOWAY at openspaceauthority.org, and I will be more than glad to get you this information. Thank you so much.
Could you say that address one more time?
Yeah. T as in Terry, ROG as in George, OWAY at Open Space Authority. That's the part that makes me winded. OpenSpaceAuthority.org. And that's my email.
Okay.
I look forward to hearing from everybody. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you, and have a beautiful day. And thank you so much, Mark. And he says thank you to me too.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody. Thank you.
Bye.